evening, and thank you so much for your patience. Welcome to the board meeting this evening. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission statement. The mission of the school district of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. Roll call, Ms. Wentz.
Mr. Bedard.
Here.
Mr. DeFranco.
Here.
Dr. Etlin.
Here.
Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Mr. Lapidus.
Here.
Mr. Needleman.
Here.
Ms. Sarsfield. Ms. Lipinski.
Here.
Dr. Taratusky.
Here. Announcements. The board at its discretion may videotape all or any portion of the public board meeting subject to the limitations set forth in policy 006.2 broadcasting of meetings. Board meetings will be broadcast on Friday afternoon following the board meeting. At this time, we will have a public comment period on agenda items only at this time. So, and there are items on the agenda. If you wish to speak on those, you may speak at this time. I just want to remind everyone that we do have the health and safety plan presentation coming up. Dr. Yannicko is going to present on that. So if there are any questions regarding that, we will listen to your comment at this time, but try to hold on responding to the questions because hopefully those will be addressed during her presentation. Again, we ask that when you come to speak, if you could please state where you reside in the township, and in order for us to make sure that everyone is heard, that we are trying to keep our public comment, individual public comments to 3 minutes. Okay. There are a few folks that are signed up in person to speak, and then we also have some attendees online. If you wish to speak and you are on the board meeting virtually, if you could use the hand raise feature. So I'm going to go with our in-person individuals first. Kathy Trinkle.
Hello, my name is Kathy Trinkle. I live in Flowertown, and thank you for letting me speak. I wasn't quite sure how this works about speaking about the health and safety thing, if I can speak ahead of time. So
It is an agenda item, so you're welcome to make a comment regarding that.
So I do not have any children in the school district anymore. My children have graduated. I do have 4 great nieces in this school district, so I am somewhat involved. I'm also running for school board. I did read the email that came out yesterday from Dr. Yannicko, and I did have some very grave concerns about it. And of course, the chatter online is quite high about it also. So I've read many, many comments from the parents for the past 24 hours online. And I just don't understand it. To make children from 5 to 17 years old come into these schools and wearing a mask all day just doesn't make sense. These masks that these kids wear are probably not exactly the cleanest thing. They've done studies on kids wearing masks all day, going to the bathroom, having E. coli on them. Their health has certainly been affected by it. This past summer, I did Vacation Bible School at our church, and the kids that wore the masks, I have to tell you, it's sad. They don't express themselves. They don't engage. They didn't talk as much as the other kids. They look depressed. I can't imagine that these kids, and I know these parents back here don't want their kids in masks all day. These kids need to be able to talk and look at their teacher in the face. When we grew up, our teachers made expressions. They smiled, they frowned, they got mad. We got all that. How can you see that with just your eyes showing? These kids need to be able to breathe. Their faces, their denture, their dentition, everything is being affected by wearing these masks all day. And I know that you're probably not going to change your decision based on what I have to say. But I truly do hope that you reconsider this. And the fact that you wrote in here that 2 to 11-year-olds potentially could be eligible for the vaccine. So your decision is going to be based in later on in the year based on that. When this thing is still under EUA, it hasn't even been approved yet. There's been numerous children affected by the vaccine, ages 11, 17. There's been 9,067 children. 16 have died post-vaccine. Okay, 400 children in this country have died from COVID, all of which had comorbidities. None of them were healthy students. So these children are healthy that are in the school. If you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You want to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. You don't want to get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. But why make every single solitary child in this school district do this? Thank you.
What I would like to do is not have reaction to that, to comments here. We're just trying to have our comment period, move through that. So appreciate, though I appreciate that you want to recognize that. I would prefer that we not at this time. Second, Jim Daly. Jim, how are you?
James Daly, 307 Pennock Road, Flowertown. I apologize to the board. I had a question I had from a previous meeting, and the only way I see it on here would be the Finance Committee. So I don't know if you want me to ask it now, or should I wait for the second period?
Well, with regard to the comment period, it's typically a comment period.
Yes, I'm just as a comment.
Yeah, so it would be probably at the end, if it's not directly related to a specific agenda item.
Are we speaking about the budget tonight?
We're not speaking about the
Oh,
budget.
okay, so just, okay, I'll wait till the end. That's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. So, I'm sorry, Lauren Camper, if you have a
How
question,
do I know what's on the agenda? There's no agenda. How does anybody know? There's no agenda.
There's-
excuse me, but the agenda is posted on Board Docs. It's been posted there since yesterday. And we can certainly get a copy of the agenda if you would like. I do have a copy of the agenda, and I'm happy to share that. Okay, the copies, okay, there were copies there. So there are individuals in the audience who do have a copy. We're happy to share those.
So Mrs. Michaels is going to bring you my copy because I have it electronically.
And if there's anyone else that's in the audience that would like to speak, I do have the agenda list, but I'll be happy to call on you afterwards via a hand raise. Okay. Sorry, Lauren.
Thank you. My name is Lauren Camper and I live in Orland. I am on the leadership committee for our Multicultural Parents Committee, and on behalf of our leadership team, which includes myself, Dr. Angela Tofik, Dr. Jim Etlin, and Dr. Piper Williams, we want to lend our full support to the board's decision for mandating masks. We know that this virus has disproportionately impacted our Black and Brown children, and unfortunately, this pandemic is not over. My child was one of those statistics. One of my children contracted the virus 9 months ago, and although the virus has left his body, he is what people would consider a long hauler with neurological issues that resurface every 3 weeks. He is suffering. We're prayerful that he will grow out of it when he transitions to adulthood, but at this time, we don't know. There's no medication that will help him. We just have to love him through it. I wouldn't wish this on any parent, and if wearing this mask is what's going to protect my younger child who is asthmatic, who has been home all school year for me to protect him because I didn't want the same thing to happen to him, then so be it. While every parent in this room has the right to make a decision for their children, you don't have a right to make a decision for my child. And you do have a responsibility as a human being to do your part in protecting your neighbor. And I commend this board for fulfilling its duty and its obligation to keep our children safe. Thank you.
Lindsay Wood.
Thank you so much for letting me speak. My name is Lindsay Wood. I'm a parent. I live in Flourtown. I'm also a community member. I'm an educator. I'm a staff member at Penn State Abington. I'm also an adjunct instructor. So I understand the difficulties of having to look your students in a masked face. However, I appreciate the board's commitment to follow the science and above all, do the two most important things that for our kids' safety and well-being, which the first is keeping our kids in school as much as possible, knowing the social, emotional, and physical benefits of in-person instruction, and also keeping our students and the local community safe through the universal masking requirements in response to Montgomery County's increase in transmission to the substantial level. Before this increase, maybe we could have been having a different conversation, but because transmission has increased in our community and specifically in Springfield Township, where we currently have a transmission rate that is among the high end in the county, 56 per 100,000. That's just right here in our township. So things being what they are, we have kids with disabilities in our county who are entitled to a free and appropriate public education. We have kids with varying abilities, and remote learning really just has not been effective for our students. And the most important thing above all, according to every pediatric association nationwide, is getting our kids back into our schools physically. And I think that for the safety of our kids, our community, the most effective thing that we can do is just, keep our community and our kids protected, especially our younger ones that cannot be vaccinated currently. Hopefully we can have a different conversation after the fall when the vaccine is available to younger students and hopefully transmission rates are lower. I do have some questions about the plan, specifically things I didn't read in the plan about testing, quarantining for vaccinated students and things like that, but I'll wait until the details of the plan are presented to ask those. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay. Ina Donato.
Hi, my name is Gina Donato, and I live in Flourtown. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this. As we said, we've heard this evening earlier that there's a lot of chatter and a lot of opinions about this subject. I would like to thank and support the board in the recommendation. And since we do have a lot of opinions and chatter, I would like to report on some facts. I am not an expert. I'm not a medical doctor. However, I have the pleasure and honor of working with 29 board certified doctors. I've been asking them about this issue for several weeks, and they simply referred me to a statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which I'd like to read. All eligible students, educators, and staff should receive the COVID-19 vaccine before schools reopen for the 2021-22 academic year, the AAP states in its COVID-19 guidance for safe schools. The organization also recommends universal masking, that all students ages 2 years and older and all school staff wear face masks at school unless medical or developmental conditions prohibit them. The AAP says it issued these policies and other policy considerations to keep students safe and physically present in school, citing the importance of in-person learning and the negative impacts on children when schools closed in 2020. And in addition to that statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics, I'd like to quote both my son and my neighbor, both entering in 4th grade, said, yes, sometimes it's kind of a pain to wear a mask, but it's worth it to keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Online, we have two individuals who have requested to speak. Lehua Provet.
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of Lehua Prevent.
Could you please state you reside in the township, please?
My granddaughter does, who will be joining your school district in the kindergarten this year. My name is Robert Provet. Hello,
Yes, can I, and where do you reside in the township?
I do not reside in the township. My daughter, my son, and my grandchild are the ones who reside. I'm here as a guest, someone on the outside who sees how important this is, that you get input from everywhere.
Okay. While I don't want to prevent you from speaking, as you are right, you are online at this time. Typically, we limit our comments to individuals who reside in the township. So I'll allow you to speak at this time.
Let me just say this to you. We all live in the community, which is the world, okay? One little part of it does not run by itself. What you do influences what goes on outside as well, okay? The things that you do, the things that you don't do are extremely important in the world we live in. Setting an example, a good example or poor example is very, very important. You are the leaders in this school district. You have the power and the important decisions to make, and you need to make them about the science and the facts, not about emotions and about politics or any other trivial things that go on. But let me just say this about your plan. I'm sure once you start a plan, there are situations where you must make changes, you must adapt and so forth. But starting out with safety is number one priority, is most important. Number two is the learning curve, all right? Children working from home it's a negative vibe. Young people in classroom is the most positive you can get with the interaction with the teachers and with their students and so forth. It's a very, very important. We as human beings are social animals, and we need that. Children in particular need that. So I'm just saying, I give you kudos, and I just want you to know that you have support from people outside of Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kristen Gray.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kristen Gray. I'm the co-president of the EEHSP. I'm here tonight to let you know that the EEHSP Executive Board supports the revised plan fully. Our focus continues to be operating in the best interest of the students, and the revised plan is a demonstration of the willingness to monitor CDC, Pennsylvania, and Montgomery County guidelines and to adjust as needed. Masking is critical to protect our students and staff at this time, so we are very happy to fully support the revised health and safety plan as proposed.
Thank you, Kristen. Niku Thomas.
Hi, I'm Miku Thomas. I live in Erdenheim, and I am a parent of a child in the district who will be entering kindergarten in the fall. I'm also a physician, and I just wanted to lend my support to the masking policy because I think that we're all, what everybody who has come to this meeting today has in common is that we want our kids in school, in person, safely. And we want to look after the mental health, the physical health of our children, and also their academic progress. And I think one of the fastest ways to do this is to have everybody adhere to a masking policy, be vaccinated when it's available so that we can remove the masks safely and as soon as possible. But if we don't do it this way, it is most likely that this pandemic is going to continue, it's going to go on, there will be more variants that will be harder to combat through vaccinations, and then we'll be in a worse position than we are in now. I think that there is a lot of misinformation out there about the effects of the vaccines, the side effects of the vaccines, and some of the negative consequences of it. I also think that there is some people are failing to see the benefit that this can really provide, and that this can actually allow things to return to normalcy faster for kids. And I do understand that when kids are wearing masks, some of them might not feel as comfortable as without them, that it's harder to read facial expressions. That's part of socialization. I agree with that. But I also think that having to go back to remote learning would be much more detrimental to all of those things. And so I would just encourage people who are concerned about that aspect of masking to think about that and remember that. Remember what it was like when we had to do remote learning because the pandemic was spreading out of control. There are kids who have no choice, who do have underlying medical conditions, who will do very poorly were they to contract COVID. Some who don't have underlying medical conditions will do very poorly if they were to contract COVID. And we do have a responsibility to educate all children and to protect all children. And so I don't think it's asking too much for kids to mask up until this is under control and a vaccine is available to enable less transmission and less negative consequences for all the kids. Thanks.
Chris Caspa.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for unmuting me. I'm with the Secondary Home and School Partnership, and I just wanted to read the following statement that the SDST Executive Committee supports the revised health and safety plan as proposed, and that we are behind whatever plan that is scientifically and medically backed to protect students and staff. So thanks.
Carl Strandberg. Carl Strandberg still on. Mark Murphy.
Hello. Oh, hi. This is Caitlin Murphy. Sorry, we're having a little bit of an issue. Hi, this is Caitlin Murphy. I have a son going into first grade. This past year, he was in kindergarten and he had a wonderful experience. My son has an expressive language delay. So as a parent, my concern, he receives services that with the masks, obviously it's difficult for him to communicate, and also during his sessions, his speech sessions. Now I'm asking the panel, what are your plans for that? Because it has been proven, particularly with children with speech delays, that it's beneficial for them to see somebody speaking, the pathologist speaking towards them, to see how their mouths are moving, and other children as well.
Dr. Yannicone will address some of those, that question, as well as some others in her presentation of the health and safety plan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I said Dr. Yannicone will address that question in her presentation of the health and safety. So that information will be provided. A. Banks. A. Banks. I still have a few people. Madeline and Julian Watson. So I have a few individuals that have hands raised online, and I still have Carl Strandberg with a hand raised, A. Banks. At this time, we'll move on to the agenda. If for some reason you still wish to comment on something, please speak up at the second public comment period. Okay. We're having some difficulties with connection. We're having some difficulties with connections. No? Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. And is there anybody else who did not sign up on the agenda items speaking list who would like to speak at this time before we move into the agenda? Anybody else that's in person? Okay. All right, thank you. We're going to move into reports and information. Dr. Yannicone will provide the administrative report.
Thanks, Dr. Teretusky, and good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all in person after the summer break. There are several updates I'd like to provide to families before our Spartan Spotlight presentation, which is the health and safety plan in a little bit more detail than you have received to date. This summer, we transitioned to Board Docs, a system which we hope will provide improved access to board meeting information for the community. Residents should simply select the school board tab at the top of the homepage of the website. Agendas will be posted on the day prior to the meeting per Sunshine Guidelines, and any discussion topics will also be posted. All interim and regular board meetings will continue to be offered both in person and virtually, and committee meetings are going to be held virtually, and they'll be announced in advance at each board meeting, as you'll see at the end of this agenda tonight. I also want to speak just briefly about registration. So families have been registering throughout the summer for the 21-22 school year. As a reminder, new families can register now online. Information can be found on our website on the main page on the left column, registering your child. All families will also be receiving a communication from the Office of Support Services with directions for the annual back to school update, which will also now be online. The online system replaces the folder that typically goes home, asking families in September to complete multiple handwritten forms with updated student and family information. You're now going to be able to do that much more easily online. We're hopeful that this will streamline the process for all of our families. In the area of facilities, last month, the Springfield Township Board of Commissioners approved a resolution that provides us with a path forward on the old Enfield School campus. Our engineering firm is working with Mr. Thorne to complete all necessary steps to proceed with demolition of the building and preparation of the grounds for construction of the athletic fields that were approved several years ago. In the early fall, we will announce opportunities for residents and alumni to tour the building's interior prior to the demolition. The township is also proceeding with steps necessary to install a school signal at Paper Mill and Montgomery Avenues and on Montgomery Avenue at the new Enfield School entrance in the fall. The signal will likely not be in place for September, but we anticipate it being in place later this fall. And members of the community have been asking this summer about access to Spartan Stadium. On tonight's agenda, there is approval of costs for additional hours for our security firm to provide supervision, access, and safety to the community effective tomorrow. With the added security, we will be able to provide both open stadium use for the public while protecting the significant investment of the residents in the very expensive track and turf field. With your approval tonight, members of the school board, we will send a message to all families with the hours for public use tomorrow. We also have a sign ready to be ordered with your approval that will then be posted at the stadium so community members will know when they can access the track and the turf. In the area of curriculum, our extended school year and Spartan academies are well underway, and we want to thank our staff for their dedication of time and talents during the summer months. I visited our programs last week and was happy to see our students actively engaged in fun and interesting learning activities. For example, our middle school students were studying the Olympics and conducting research on their favorite sport. And when I visited, our middle school principal, Mr. Fuller, was providing a fencing lesson. The kids were not sparring, but he was providing a fencing lesson to all the students at the middle school. When I visited Erdenheim last week, students were building hovercrafts and taking part in various STEM challenges. So they're really having a good time this summer, and we're excited for the next few weeks of Spartan Academies. And then I'm going to move on to the health and safety plan. Because we're in an environment where there are about 200 people at home, and then we have those of you in front of us here, I'm going to stay in my seat rather than get up and move around. The camera will be able to just stay stable. The slides are going to be up on the screen. And hopefully those of you at home are going to be able to see those slides as well as hear the presentation. So I'll ask Mr. Oliver if you can go ahead and put that presentation up on the screen.
I'm just going to move around.
Yeah, that's great, Mrs. Kwinsky. And Mr. Thorne is a little under the weather. Dr. Ritt, do you know how to turn the lights down in case people need to? If not, we'll just do our best to see. Okay. It's all right. It's all right. So that print is small, but I'm going to provide this to the community tonight or tomorrow. All right. And then, so you'll have access to it. It'll be on the website. And I'm also going to read much of what's on the screen. So if you can't see it, if you can hear me, then you'll have the information. Okay. I'm hopeful that I'm answering through this presentation all of the questions that have been asked of me either over email or that have come to me through the administrative team or from family or community. But if for some reason I don't answer something in the second comment period, I'm happy to try to do that for you. Okay. So I just want to begin by acknowledging there's a real challenge for school leaders and board members at this time. And I will acknowledge publicly that I have been frustrated by this particular challenge in the first few bullets. First of all, while last year our governor imposed a mask mandate and the county commissioners supported the mandate publicly, this year no such mandates or directives have been provided. Essentially, school leaders and board members, many of whom, including myself, have no background in medicine, have been now expected to review recommendations and all available scientific literature on our own and determine the safest course of action district by district. I will tell you, I have several degrees as superintendent. I have an undergraduate degree in English literature and education. I have a master's degree in English literature, and I have a doctorate in educational leadership. The last time I had a science course was sometime in the late 80s, and it was physics. All right, so I've done my very best to review the scientific literature, and I am open to hearing feedback from the community if you think there's something we should be considering in the scientific literature that we haven't. All right. We're eager to return children full-time to in-person schooling. That's our #1 priority. Health agencies have stated that this is an important step in restoring students' mental and physical well-being, as well as their educational access. So that's been our #1 goal in developing the plan. Some of you may know there was a plan that we released last Thursday evening, and then we revised it on Monday. For all of 2020 and 2021, and through last Wednesday evening, the local districts were asked to use rates of vaccination that were local to us and local rates of transmission to determine how to proceed in masking. This was the case through the Montgomery Office of Public Health until midday on Thursday, the 29th. The plans were due to the Pennsylvania Department of Education the next day, July 30th, in order to be eligible to receive your ARP ESSER funds. So those federal dollars that have been identified for use, we had to submit a plan posted on the website by Friday. And they changed the guidance between Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, the CDC, and Thursday, the local health agency. All right. So this created a significant challenge for our administrative team. And it's why I spent the weekend reading scientific literature and reviewing the most recent information to come out, because we had made a decision as an administrative team last week and then had to go back and revisit it. All right. The next slide, please. So with regard to timeline for guidance, in the last month, the CDC released updated guidance at the beginning of the month, July 9th. And then July 20th, CHOP Policy Lab released their guidance. Now, this was significant to us because we have been consulting with doctors from CHOP all the way through the pandemic. They come to weekly meetings of the Office of Public Health and all of the county superintendents. So we regularly have additional guidance from CHOP based on what they're seeing in their hospitals and their knowledge of children and health, quite frankly. July 27th, last Tuesday, the Montgomery County Office of Public Health released guidance. So those 3 dates, all the guidance suggested that school districts use local transmission rates and community vaccination rates to determine whether or not masks were necessary in schools. The next day, all that changed. The CDC revised their guidance, stating that they recommended universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, and students and visitors to all K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. They also suggested that children should return to full-time in-person learning in the fall with layered prevention strategies in place. So we finalized our plan and then released it. And then the next day, the local Office of Public Health released the statement here. In alignment with the CDC, MCOPH recommends universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to schools, regardless of vaccination status or school district level of community transmission. Now, I will tell you that at the time of their release, we were right on the cusp of moderate. They had 4 levels: low, moderate, substantial, and high. As of this week, we are now in substantial locally. And unfortunately, in Springfield Township, our numbers are worse than they are in the county. It's the first time that's been the case in my tenure since last December. Over that period, Springfield has always had better numbers than the county. Our numbers are worse right now. It's alarming to me. It's alarming to our team. So next slide, please. So consistent guidance, regardless of all these different dates and releases, is that students benefit from in-person learning, and safely returning to in-person instruction in the fall of 21 is a priority. And we agree with that. Thank you, Dr. Ritnex. Vaccination is also, according to the CDC, the leading public health prevention strategy to end the pandemic, which we all want, right? We all want this pandemic to be over. Promoting vaccination can help schools safely return to in-person learning, as well as extracurricular activities and sports. Schools should maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance between students within classrooms, combined with indoor mask wearing by people who are not fully vaccinated to reduce transmission risk. And when it is not possible to maintain physical distance of at least 3 feet, such as when schools cannot fully reopen while maintaining these distances, it's especially important to layer multiple other prevention strategies, such as indoor masking. That last bullet on this slide, as you'll see in the next few slides, was a critical component in our decision to recommend universal masking. Next slide, please. So our health plan has a number of components. But among them, we have required masking indoors and on school buses by all K-12 students and staff. Now, school buses were already in place with our summer programming because they are considered public transportation, and under state guidance, we must have masks on public transportation. That includes our school buses. We have optional masking outdoors and at lunch. It's not recommended, but there are some families in our community with immunocompromised children who would like their children to mask at recess and at lunch. They are certainly welcome to do so. Though I want to acknowledge here, the CDC does not recommend that, nor does the MCOPH. And so we are not recommending it, but we will permit it. In fact, we think it would be important for children to have those mask breaks at lunch, at recess, and at designated break times. We're also going to maintain all hygiene, cleaning, sanitizing, and ventilation strategies that were in place last year. Just this last week, Mr. Thorne worked with his team to replace all of the filters in all of our ventilation units to make sure they're ready to go for the new school year. And I also want to note that this health and safety plan is fluid. It can be revised at any time with the approval of the board. So within a 2-week period, we can change the guidelines. We can lift the mask mandate if it's warranted. We can make other adjustments as needed. So while it's listed effective tomorrow, because we have summer programs in place, I am hopeful that if 2 things happen, which is what I understand to be the case, again, as an English educator and school leader, it's my understanding that if national vaccination rates rise, then we will have a lesser risk for our children. And if some of our children are able to get vaccinated this fall, we will do a better job of eliminating not only the Delta variant, but other potential future variants. Because what I've learned about virus is that the longer it goes, the more variants will appear over time. And that's my layman's understanding of how variants work. Okay, next slide. So why change the recommendations? First of all, scientific data supports the potential for transmission now of the Delta variant between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, whether symptomatic or asymptomatic. That is new data that was released last week based on several studies, one of which was a significant outbreak in Barnstable County in Massachusetts off Cape Cod. Guidance from the CDC and MCOPH changed last week from utilizing local rates of transmission and vaccination to universal indoor masking in schools. All of last year, we followed MCOPH's guidance. And the reason why we did so over and above either state or national guidance is that oftentimes that guidance is based upon a much broader population, whereas MCOPH guidance is unique to our local community. And so we've traditionally, over the course of the pandemic, followed that MCOPH guidance. Currently, we have students age 11 and under, which impacts 3 of our 4 schools because our 6th graders are largely under the age of vaccination. They don't yet have access to it. And so that puts them at higher risk. Rates of transmission are on the rise nationally, regionally, and locally, with the Delta being the primary virus. Now, just in Springfield Township, 3 weeks ago, our positivity rate was about 0.25. And as of this morning, it is about 3.5%, which is reflected on our dashboard because we're continuing to update that every week. So that's a significant increase in a very short period of time. And then lastly, our rationale is that 97.2% of our families in a survey in June indicated that they want their children back in person in September. That is a significantly high concentration of students. We're somewhere expecting between 700 and 800 students per building to be returning in September. And in order to accommodate those students, masking will assist us with the most normal schedule we can offer. Next slide, please. So here are the educational benefits of universal masking. The Montgomery County Office of Public Health has published their exclusion guidelines for this year. That is, if there's contact tracing necessary, and there's exposure to a positive COVID case, what do we have to do with the rest of the kids? So what they're telling us is that students who are close contacts of a positive case will not have to quarantine if they're asymptomatic, if they're in masks, and we do our best to maintain 3 feet. So just by putting the children in masks, we significantly reduce the risk to families that we will be calling you to say you got to bring your kid home for 7 to 10 days. That's helpful to local businesses because parents don't have to take off of work. That's helpful to our children because they're kept in school, which is where we all want them to be. Secondly, fewer staff will become ill and need to stay home. We are in the process of surveying our staff. We believe that our staff is over 90% vaccinated based on registration rates last winter. I've had parents ask me that question, and so I want to make sure that you all have that information. We believe we have a very high rate of vaccination of our staff. However, staff do get sick, and right now there is a serious sub shortage in the region and frankly nationally. Some school districts are making major decisions. Last year, for example, one school district added 10 subs just to paid for 10 subs. We are a small district. We need our teachers to be in the building with their students. And so making sure that we minimize their illness will make sure that they are here with us and not at home. And we're looking for subs, or we have teachers covering classes. We also, as a result of this, because we can now have the kids 3 feet apart, where feasible, we can return our schedules to pre-pandemic models. So students are going to be able to go back to their wide variety of classes, standard length of classes. This includes work in small groups, lab experiments, attending music and art in the music and art classroom, not having mobile carts as we had to last year. They can engage in social activities without the risk of quarantine because they're in masks. We can resume our field trips because many of the groups that we would go and visit would require masks. And so putting the children in masks, having them used to that, we're going to be able to resume all of our field trips, which last year we didn't have any. And finally, students and staff who are immunocompromised can attend in person. I do appreciate that a number of families have reached out to me. Families who had children who last year were going through cancer treatment, who they kept home for 18 months, and they're eager to return them to the school building in September, but only if the children are masked. Families who have significant health issues that they're dealing with, not only the children, but also relatives, grandparents who live with them, parents who live with them. And so we want to really do our best so that the 97% who want to come back can do that safely, and we can get you back to a regular schedule. Next slide, please. So we also understand there are a lot of mental health considerations. There is no doubt that children, and frankly, all of us in this room and everybody on Zoom, we've all been impacted mentally by the pandemic. It's been an extremely stressful 18 months, and unfortunately, we're not coming out of it right away. This will allow our students to safely attend 5 days a week in person. They can reestablish relationships with friends and staff. That's going to be the most they've been in school since March of 2020, 5 days a week, full time. We're going to have mask breaks to allow students to see each other's smiles throughout the day, to see the teachers' faces, all of their outdoor activities. Teachers can bring their classes outside. They can take breaks outside. They can take walks outside. Lunches, students will be able to be outside and unmasked, or in the cafeteria clearly unmasked. So as comfortable, students will have multiple opportunities throughout the school day to take those masks off. Teachers, with the support of school counselors, will provide lessons to support students through our second step program, K-8, Spartan Pride in our elementary school, and our Naviance curricula at the high school, building social skills and trying to resume those relationships which have suffered during the pandemic. Contract tracing is also going to be simplified for our school nurses, who can resume focus on the other health needs of our students. I don't think there's a group of professionals last year, including every person, every administrator in this room. There's no one who's worked harder than those 4 school nurses and their assistants over the last 18 months. It's been a tremendous burden on them. They've worked 7 days a week. They've answered emails at night. They have been outstanding. And to be able to reduce that contact tracing need, because the children are in masks, is going to help them to help in other ways that families need assistance from the school nurse. And that's an important thing that we can resume that really had to be put on the back burner last year. All of our extracurricular activities are going to resume fully in all schools. I've directed all the principals that every single club and activity should resume fully this fall. And that begins with athletics in a week. Football starts next week. And I'll get to athletics in a minute on the details. Families may contact social workers as well to learn about community supports or access to our school-based outpatient therapy. We do know that there are children who are really suffering because they have been home. For example, the student I talked about who's had cancer, a cancer battle for the last 18 months and not felt safe to come to school. Children who right now are experiencing long haul COVID. We have resources available to you. Our Director of Support Services is in the room tonight, and she will be happy to speak with families about resources that are available in the district and in the community for students who are experiencing struggles as a result of this pandemic. Next slide. So I know that there are a lot of families that are interested in the building plans. Principals are going to release specific details of each program on Wednesday, August 18th. But as I said, we are offering a full complement schedule, all of the courses and activities, regular lunch, all special area activities, all extracurricular activities. It will all be offered in September. And then in athletics, we're talking about next week. So they just got from me the direction that we're going to change gears to full masking yesterday morning. And so as a result, I'm giving them a few weeks to get their building plans together. All right, they were well underway and they will get them to you as soon as possible, but that's the date I've set for them, Wednesday, August 18th. All of our lunches, as I said earlier, will include outdoor options and 3 feet of distance indoors where feasible. So I do want to be clear with families who have more anxiety around this. Your children will have an option to sit outside for lunch. If you are more comfortable with that, that's fine. Indoors, we only have so many seats. And again, almost everybody's coming back, we hope. And so they might be a little tighter than 3 feet. You've been in the cafeteria, you can see the tables. And so if you want your children outside, they can be outside. Every nice day, we're going to encourage the kids to spread out. The principals are looking at their lunchrooms and other areas where they might be able to provide seating so we can maximize spread, distance if we need to for you. All right. And then school buses is another area. I know for some families that are more anxious about this, that this is not a great answer for you, but right now there's a significant driver shortage. And again, almost everybody's coming back, we hope. So there's going to be 2 to 3 kids to a seat. We just can't fit it otherwise. We don't have enough drivers. We're not going to get any more drivers. Our transportation director is here tonight too. He has tried. You may have heard there is a national bus driver shortage. In fact, anybody in here who'd like to learn how to drive a bus, I'm sure Mr. Braid would be happy to get you the information. Okay, it's a great way to get to know your community and your kids. If you live here, we'd certainly love it because you know the neighborhoods better than anybody else. But we are going to be tight on the buses. You can drive your children to school, but you all know what happened last year when almost everybody was driving their kids. Montgomery Avenue and Paper Mill are going to be a bit of a mess for about a half an hour every morning. All right, Dr. Markle, who's here in the room tonight, and her assistant, Mr. Fleming, will do everything they can. Our maintenance crew will do everything they can to help provide support, and hopefully that school signal's coming soon through the township. But that's the best we're going to be able to do. So if you're not comfortable with 2 to 3 to a seat on the bus, then you need to drive your kids to school. All right. Okay. Extracurricular activities. So we know this is a really important component for kids to get back in these extracurricular activities. All student activities will resume. And so the only existing guidelines right now are that indoor activities are masked, outdoor activities are unmasked. So most of our athletics are outdoor. We had athletic plans in place last year that went through the Southeastern the league. Mr. Ferraro is working with all the other athletic directors with this very recently released guidance. They are hoping to have a plan in place for our August 17th board meeting to explain anything that happens indoors. Like, for example, let's say it's a really rainy day and the field hockey team goes indoors to practice. What's our plan? So that information will be released at the next board meeting. Guidance for music activities is also currently under review and will be released once available. Our music teachers have barely had a chance, they're on their summer vacation. But we anticipate and we expect to have all of our music activities back fully in the start of the school year. And then those families who choose the virtual option, for whatever reason, you're not happy that we're putting kids in masks, or you don't feel safe yet returning your child to school, your children are able to participate in extracurriculars fully in any manner you feel comfortable, all right? As long as you're following the guidelines we have in place. So if you want to keep your child home because you're not happy that we're putting the kids in masks, but you want them to play football, that's fine. All right, so you have full access to all extracurricular activities. That's what's best for kids, that they can participate in the activities they love. All right, next slide. Vaccination and testing. So our staff have been encouraged to get vaccinated, and clinics were provided to reduce illness exposure and absenteeism by the staff. We are not mandating the vaccine at this time. That may come under review in the future, but currently, and I'll speak for myself, not for the board, we are not recommending that as a requirement right now because the vaccine is still under emergency authorization. I would like the federal government to authorize it fully, frankly, but they haven't done that yet. And so I'm not going to recommend a vaccine mandate at this time. All students who are eligible for the vaccine are encouraged to consult with their family physician on whether the vaccine is appropriate for them at this time. Again, English teacher, school leader, not scientist, not doctor. I will not recommend the vaccine. I will tell you, I am vaccinated. All of my relatives are vaccinated. I believe in the vaccine, but you should speak to your family physician if you have a question about whether or not to get vaccinated. When it's authorized for children ages 2 to 11, we will host a clinic to assist in it being accessible to families who want it. Just like we did in the spring, when 12 and up became eligible, we were happy to run a vaccine clinic so that families didn't have to drive to Allentown or into Philadelphia or wherever to get the vaccine if that's what they wanted. We want to make sure that the vaccine is accessible to our children when they're eligible. So we'll do the same this fall. And we're not going to engage in any on-campus testing, but we will provide information to families who are interested in testing. Some districts may be considering on-site testing. I've had some parents ask me, are we going to randomly pull kids out and test them without parents' notice? Absolutely not. All right. I don't believe that's the job of educators, and that's what we do for a living. All right. Next slide. Alternatives to universal masking and non-compliance. So let's say you're still really unhappy. I know we have some community members who just don't believe the children should be in masks. So here are your options. If a family physician advises that wearing a mask is medically unsafe or unhealthy for your child, you may complete a request for a reasonable accommodation, as was the case last year. We had some families who did so last year. If you go onto the website under the COVID-19 resources and you scroll down to the bottom, there are resources for families. Under those resources is the exemption form. You are welcome to take that to your family physician, have them complete it, submit it to the Office of Support Services, and we'll be happy to review it and then meet with you to talk about what are the reasonable accommodations we can provide. All right. There are religious exemptions or exceptions. That's going to be handled the same way as the medical exemptions or exceptions. Complete the form. You don't need to get your priest to sign it, but complete the form, state that it's a religious exemption or exception request. We'll review it. All right. Any family who objects, to masking for other than medical or religious reasons, you can be enrolled in our IU MVP virtual program, the Montgomery virtual program. Any refusal to comply with the health and safety guidelines, however, in our health and safety plan will be addressed using progressive discipline, as with any other violation of school rules. The student code of conduct, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be on the August 17th board agenda for approval. And that will include a statement that all students are expected to follow the health and safety plan guidelines when on school grounds. Next slide. So there are a couple of educational options for families. If you want full-time in person, our district teachers will deliver the instruction. Teachers in person will not live stream or concurrently teach in order to be able to focus on the children in the classroom. We found last year, look, we were in an emergency situation and we did the very best we could and our teachers worked really hard, but it is not ideal. So they are going to concentrate on the children in the classroom. Attendance is going to return to pre-pandemic expectations as well for on-time, in-person participation. I say this to any parents of high schoolers. Again, expectations, on time, in person, if you're signed up for in person. Our high schoolers had a lot of liberty last year, and they took full advantage of that because they're high schoolers. But we need them to get back in school on time in person. If you don't choose full-time in person, and remember that survey is due on Sunday night, we have a virtual school option. We are in the process of hiring a coordinator who's going to facilitate registration and ongoing communication with families. So we're going to take a look early next week who signed up for virtual. Our coordinator and Dr. Johnston, through her Office of Teaching and Learning as the Assistant Superintendent, will reach out to families. We'll make sure you have all the information you need, and we'll get you registered for virtual school. We've coordinated with the MCIU virtual program. They will be providing the teachers and delivering the instruction. The instruction is, I'm going to say, tempered in that there's more synchronous instruction at the elementary level and more asynchronous instruction at the secondary level. All right. And we've coordinated our curricular program with the IU so that students will be able to seamlessly return in the second semester if you decide you want to keep your kids home in the fall. All right. Families have to commit one semester at a time that we will complete courses. Commitments are due this Sunday night for the fall semester, and then any changes we'll provide you around the holidays. We'll give you information about making a change if you want to for the start of the second semester, which is right around January 28th. And then we have a virtual school information session that's coming this Thursday with Dr. Johnston and the IU. We have a representative from the IU who will be there, and tomorrow morning she will send out information to all families to show you how to register for that session, get your questions answered so that over the weekend when you're making your decision, you really feel fully informed. Right? And then any family who doesn't complete the survey, we're going to assume you're coming back in person. In June, we had all but about 300 students who answered the survey. So that's not bad. Out of 2,500, we had about 2,200 responses. So we're hopeful we'll get similar response rate this week. And then we'll get moving on plans once we know who's staying and who's going to virtual. Next slide. So this is the last thing I just wanted to say to you. I wish we weren't in this situation. I really wish the pandemic was past us. I'm not any happier than anybody else here to be in a mask tonight. I prefer if the pandemic was over and we were able to just move forward. Our administrative team spent retreat not thinking about the health and safety plan. We concentrated on what students need this year. So I want to announce our 3 district themes, and I want you to know that after this vote, whatever the board decides, our plan is to concentrate on what kids need in their educational program. Masks or not masks, they're coming really soon. And so we expect to be ready. So we have 3 district themes that our administrative team has chosen. We're going to continue to aspire to be a community of growth and caring, rooted in equitable practices. We intend to work collaboratively to strengthen our community in these ways. We're going to continue to expand opportunities for personalized and flexible learning for students and staff. I hope that just demonstrating we're offering virtual and in-person is one example of that commitment. We're going to support our school community's physical and mental health as we transition through and hopefully out of the pandemic this year. And then we're going to continue to expand our efforts to build and sustain a sense of belonging for all across and within our school community. These are our themes. There's certainly much on our plate this year. This week I've been meeting with our building principals to look at data from last year and what are our academic goals for the coming year. But these are our themes. This is where we'll be putting our energies. I really do appreciate all of your participation in the meeting, all of the questions over email, and I hope that I'll be able to answer anything else that you have for us. Our administrative team is here, and what we can't answer tonight, I'll happily work to answer this week before the weekend so you can make a good decision for you and your children. All right, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yannicone. Okay, we're going to move to new business at this time. Personnel. The Board of School Directors approves the following. Excuse me, I'm sorry, we're continuing on with the meeting. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: confidential personnel, certificated personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, Spartan Academy program personnel, COVID compensatory services personnel, extended school year ESY program personnel, extra pay for extra responsibilities 2021 to 2022, and conference workshop attendance. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye. Second item is our health and safety plan. And the Board of School Directors approves the health and safety plan for the fall semester of 2021-2022 school year. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second. Second.
Any comments or questions from the board? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye. Number 3, curriculum consultant, ART. The Board of School Directors approves the independent contractor agreement between the School District of Springfield Township and Lauren Stichter beginning August 1st, 2021 for the curriculum consulting and professional learning for ART. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any comments or questions? Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye. Number 4, MCIU mathematics curriculum, instruction and assessment, professional learning and coaching. Board of School Directors approves the service agreement between the School District of Springfield Township and the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit for the delivery of mathematics curriculum, instruction and assessment, professional learning and coaching for secondary math teachers from June 23rd, 2021 through November 19th, 2021, not to exceed $16,700. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye. Number 5, Newsella. Board of School Directors approves the license renewal for Newsella for use at Erdenheim, the middle school and the high school at a cost of $21,400. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Michael?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratusky.
Aye. Number 6, Camp Hill School 2021 Extended School Year Contract. The Board of School Directors approves the agreement between the Camp Hill School and Springfield Township School District for student 2021-0803-01 for the 2021 Extended School Year Program. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Second. Any comments or questions? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus.
Aye.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratuski.
Aye. Number 7, New Hope Academy tuition contracts. The Board of School Directors approves the tuition contract between the New Hope Academy and Springfield Township School District for the 2021-2022 school year for students 2021-0803-2 and 2021-0803-3. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Any comments or questions? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus.
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratuski.
Aye. Number 8, Deaf Hearing Interface. The Board of School Directors approves the contract between the School District of Springfield Township and Deaf Hearing Interface for the 2021-2022 school year. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratuski.
Aye. Number 9, Access Program. The Board of School Directors approves the subcontract agreement between the School District of Springfield Township and the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit Number 23 for Access Program Billing Services from July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski, Dr. Taratuski.
Aye. Number 10, Security Services. The Board of School Directors approves the addition of security services under the current contract between Advanced Protection Company and the School District of Springfield Township for security services effective the August 7th, 2021 until June 30th, 2022, not to exceed $43,200. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second? Second. Any comments or questions? Michaels?
Mr. Bedard,
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco,
Aye.
Dr. Edlin,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus,
Aye.
Mr. Needleman,
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski,
Aye.
Dr. Taratuski.
Aye. Number 11, Security Services Spartan Stadium. The Board of School Directors approves the addition of security services under the current contract between Advanced Protection Company and the School District of Springfield Township for the Spartan Stadium, effective August 7th, 2021 until June 30th, 2022, not to exceed $50,300. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I actually do have a question. I guess this pertains to the last one as well. With this ending June 30th, I'm assuming I'm getting ahead of myself, but we'll have something in place for next summer so that we don't have a gap again.
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks.
I just want to acknowledge there was a comment through the Q&A with regard to this item. And I guess it was with regard to the fact that the stadium has not been available for community access. And this item would allow for the community to have expanded access to the stadium. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We'll post the hours and I'll send that out tomorrow so families know when they can get on this. The greatest challenge, quite frankly, to community access to the stadium is that we have a lot of township groups that are using the stadium and the track. And we also have our own athletic teams, which again begin next week. But we're going to work it in. We'll make sure that we have the stadium open for people to be able to use it in the community.
Sure. Any other comments or questions?
Just one question, the difference between, it's 10, which is the addition of services under the current contract. I understand the one for the stadium, but the additional or addition, is that additional to what we currently have?
Yes, we currently have services at the high school part-time. We're going to extend that time and we're also going to add services during the lunch hour at the middle school.
I'll just comment. I think this is excellent move to serve the community and I appreciate the administration reviewing it.
Mr. Bedard.
Aye.
Mr. DeFranco.
Aye.
Dr. Etlin. Ms. Jordan.
Aye.
Mr. Lapidus.
Aye.
Mr. Needleman.
Aye.
Ms. Lipinski.
Aye.
Dr. Tartaski.
Aye. Great. At this time, we will have public comment on non-agenda items. If you wish to speak, I do have a few folks on the sign-up list from the in-person meeting. If you wish to speak and you are online, please use the hand raise feature. When you're called on, if you could just share where you live in the township. And again, in order for us to allow for everyone to speak, we just try to ask that you could keep it to 3 minutes for your comments. If there is some factual information that we are able to answer, we certainly will do that. Otherwise, we will take your comment, and if there's something else we need to find out, we'll get back to you. Jim Daly?
James Daly, 307 Penn Oak Road, Flowertown. I guess just from comments and some observations, I believe there was about 13 votes tonight altogether. And out of the 117, it's rough, there was not one dissent on not one vote. And only comments were made for the last item with respect for clarification for the stadium. So I was across the street for 12 years and probably 144 meetings and as a commissioner for the township. And after each vote, a commissioner would usually give some type of comment as to how they were thinking. So the agenda items come out last night. The votes are tonight. How is the public supposed to know what you're thinking, particularly about the health and safety plan? It's an open question, and I've been looking at these votes for the last couple of months. There seems to be never a dissent or a question or a clarification. So if a board member tonight had a different idea about the health and safety plan, how would that work tonight? Would there be a motion to amend it? Because folks at home, I'm not going to get into whether you should wear a mask or not. There's 200 folks at home listening. There's folks here, but they really would like to hear what you're thinking. I want to know what you're thinking. We're all in a different world here. We're trying to figure it out. So that's just some thought for you, because I have listened for the last couple months. Can someone tell me a dissent in the last 3 or 4 months on any vote? There's no diversity of thought at all. There's clarifications on the stadium tonight. I think that's great, but there's no dissent at all. And you all want to be unanimous. I get that. I was on a board. You try to build consensus, but where's the public seeing that consensus built? There's no open discussion here at all. And I have an open-ended question as to why. So I think that goes to, how some of the folks are thinking. But when I ask a question up here, and I apologize, Neil and I got in a little discussion on election day. When I ask a question, I'm not just asking for myself. There might be 30 people that ask me the same question, or somebody out there that asks a question. So the questions are out there. So on the health and safety plan, I have a question. And I apologize to the superintendent, but I observe things. That's what I do for a living. You may have touched your mask 25 times tonight, and I respect you, and I'm not trying to embarrass you. I do the same thing. I'm sitting there, like this. And then you mentioned the disciplinary for the children honoring the code. Are children going to be disciplined for touching their mask in class? Because it happened last year. And I want to know that answer as a parent. Their kids, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, they're fidgety. And I'm not, again, not fair. I do that. You do it yourself. What's going to happen to a kid in class that touches their mask? Are they going to be sent to the principal's office? So please don't tell me it did happen last year.
What I can tell you is, thank you for the question. Yeah, okay, we can answer it.
And I know it's not a question.
Right.
That's an observation.
Yeah, sure. No, I understand.
Absolutely.
I believe you. I'm not trying to embarrass you.
I'm fine. It's no big
It
deal.
drives me nuts.
It's fine. It's fine. Look, I wish it fit better. And as I talk, I'm a little animated, so it's probably why it's dropping a little bit.
It's not natural. It
I hear-
happens.
I understand. The kids are, the students are regularly asked to wash their hands. They have hand sanitizers. We do our best to keep their hands clean. I washed my hands before I came out here. But I'm unaware of a situation in which a child was disciplined for touching their mask.
Or their mask falling down, I should say.
Yeah, so if a child is having trouble maintaining their mask, then the teacher has been asked to help them, like, is it an issue of fit? There may be times where a principal would have a conversation if a kid was appearing to purposefully disobey. But-
Okay, so how's that kid, how's that discipline gonna work? That's what I'd like to know.
Sure. So we use restorative discipline at the secondary level, and we use responsive classrooms. So that's also considered like progressive discipline. When you and I were kids, it was a little different, right? You went to the principal's office, you called your parents, and it was trouble for you at school and at home. Our principals try to have a conversation and resolve the issue. What's the problem? Do we need a different mask? Do we need a mask break? What is the concern? So we try to resolve things in a responsive, restorative way. That's our approach.
Because these children are being fitted with 95 masks like nurses are in the hospital.
Right.
I mean, some of us up here are married to spouses that had to be fitted for a mask.
Yeah.
So they ask a child to sit there, and again, I'm not getting into debate. I'm just saying,
Okay.
this is what your decision is. This is what's going to happen. That's fine. People can make up their own minds. But it's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's going to fall off.
Sure.
And I just ask that somehow the teachers receive some type of training and some type of sensitivity, that these are children, that this is going to happen. And, you know, I hate to see that go that way. So that's one observation. With respect to the health and safety plan, I haven't heard, and the head of the CDC wasn't able to answer it over the weekend. I was hoping that she would. What, does anybody know what the long-term effects of a child wearing a mask for several months during the year?
So I don't know the answer to that.
The
But I've-
CDC director doesn't either.
Well, then why would I, right? So,
That's my point.
but I can tell you, I've read 3 mask studies,
Mhm.
and a couple people have asked about studies. I'm happy if you email me, I'll send you what I've reviewed.
Sure.
I've tried to only review scientific studies. So things out of Yale Medicine, things out of the National Library of Microbiology. You know, that's what I've concentrated on. Someone referenced the American Academy of Pediatrics. They have a piece on mask myths and what you should know about masks based on their research. But I don't think any of us know. We're 18 months into this, right? So none of us know long-term effects of COVID, long-term effects of masks. But I do think, as I said, that our students have responded tremendously well. They were rock stars last year. And we gave them tons of breaks. And we'll continue to do that.
I mean, there could be dental impacts that we don't even know about.
I haven't read anything about that. But what I will tell you,
I'm sorry, we have a speaker here, so I'm just
I'm
going to
not
allow
interrupting
him
anybody
to
else.
speak at this time.
I'm sorry if I heard you.
no, I understand.
Thank you.
What I can tell you is we'll do our very best to provide students mask breaks throughout the day.
I appreciate the time. And I guess one of my final questions would be, what indoor athletic activities will require masking? Swimming?
Last year, if it's any indication, swimming did not require masking. It would be difficult to swim in a mask, right? So it did not require masking.
just
Water
asking.
polo did not require a mask.
I've seen it with indoor basketball,
Mhm.
and you know, we have some concerns about that. You know, you mask up the refs, mask up everybody else, but I've seen the impacts of it with respect to girls basketball.
Mhm.
So that would be my concern. And the last thing with respect to indoor sports and masking, if another district doesn't have a masking or a optional, how is the school going to handle that with respect to our students going there or them coming here?
Right, so all of that is under review for this year. And our athletic director is going to bring that health and safety plan to the next meeting.
Will it affect any of the fall sports coming up?
Again, it's all under review. They just got this guidance a couple of days
No,
ago.
I understand the situation and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jim. If you wish, you may.
Oh, well, no, thank you.
Okay.
Want to talk about your decision?
Oh, I just wanted to respond to your question, but I see the respect. Teasing you. No, I'm kidding. You were asking about people speaking, and so I've known you for what, a decade, and you've liked me for maybe 3 of those years. So I was going to explain why I voted the way I did, and none of us, I've never ever felt any pressure to conform or not speak my mind. I think that's kind of universal, and it's been like that after my first few years on the board. To me, this was a tough decision because I hate this thing, and quite frankly, whenever it's optional, I choose not to wear it. But I have to look at it like a greater good. There are people who do not have the opportunity to get a vaccine if they choose to, like younger kids. And for whatever reason, some people, for health reasons, may choose not to. So for me, it was kind of a mixed decision, but I err on the side of wear this until hopefully the numbers come back down and then things change and we'll be back to normal at some point. But that's why I voted the way I did. It was less for personal, because if it were just up to me, I would never wear this again. But the greater good, it's like wearing a seatbelt on an airplane. I love the turbulence, but.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. I didn't turn my back. I
No,
thought
that's
you were
okay.
finished.
You're no different than my wife. She turns her back constantly.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, we have Jim Nally.
Yes, I'm Jim now. I live in Erdenheim.
Okay.
And I'd like to express my feelings to the parents, teachers, and administrators for the academic year 2021. It was a very perplexing and taxing period. And I want to make you feel that I was concerned about all of the groups. What I want to ask is, since some school districts were physically open and some school districts were virtually open and a mix of both, what did that do to the state standardized testing? What is, I think that's from grades 3 through 12. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. What happened to the state standardized testing?
Do you want to answer the standardized
Sure.
testing question?
We administered them.
Mhm.
We administered them as we did every other year.
You did administer them.
In 21, we did. In 20, there was a waiver from the state. There were no tests in the spring of 20. But in 21.
Usually it's in April. That's when it's
Yes,
done.
Yes. So the
In 20, it
Keystones-
wasn't done.
Correct. The state paused the testing in 20, in the spring of 20.
Right.
In the spring of 21, they resumed testing. So we had Keystone exams as well as PSSAs for the younger children. Those scores are not yet back. We do not worry a whole heck of a lot about those scores. We concentrate on all of the other assessment measures. And we administered all of our assessments last year. I think you may or may not have heard me say earlier, I have data meetings
Yes.
with each of our principals and our assistant superintendent. We're reviewing all of the data and then identifying areas where we might need to put some extra emphasis this year.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Sure.
Because of what happened in April of 21, they took the test, but there could be a statistical blurb because of the conditions, and I'm sure the state is going to consider that when they go into measuring it.
I certainly
There
hope
might be a
so.
footnote at the bottom.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
All right, that's all that I have.
Do
on
the hand
in
raised.
person. I'm going to go to the hand raise. A Banks. A Banks. You're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Sorry. You're welcome to type your question into the Q&A if you'd like.
Another hand raised.
I will give a minute. I'll see if we can get Madeline and Julian Watson online. And if you can, you need to type.
Yes, hello.
Can you please state where you live in the township?
Winmore.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to say, my children all suffered mentally, emotionally, socially because of the masks. I complied last year and the year before, and at this point, the children's development is being stunted across the board from mandates. Down to the standardized testing, the coag testing, everything is down. The mandates are what is stunting it. COVID is a virus. There's always going to be new variants. That's not going to change. So fear mongering and forcing medical equipment onto children that doesn't work without consent when you're not even required to do this is nothing short of abuse. Like, who are the few people that you're trying to appease? Like, why, like, seriously, like, paranoid parents should go to hybrid or homeschool. Optional mask is a compromise. Masking for all is just dictatorship and a violation of our rights and a clear abuse of your power. Parents are responsible for their children's health decision, not school boards, not unions, not principals, not strangers. They should be able to decide to wear a mask or not. I don't see it anything less than child abuse. There's speech pathologists that can attest to it. There's people that can attest to the mental effects that it's having that far outweigh the dangers of a child contracting COVID. If you're a child that has an underlying condition, well, then maybe they should do in virtual school. Because masking optional is the only clear choice based in science. We're no longer in an emergency declaration. We know children are not spreaders. We know that they don't die from it, even if they do get sick, unless they have a pre-existing condition. And those are the few, not the majority. They need to be careful. So why can't it be their choice to stay home and go virtual? Why do the majority of students have to compromise and be forced to suffer greatly 8 hours a day when there's studies of how bad masks are with CO2 levels and different things that happen? Admittedly, you say that you don't understand the science of all of this. You mentioned you only read 3 articles about it. I mean, that's it? Seriously? And you're making the decisions for our children? And not only that, but you like okey-doked us on the day before the meeting when you clearly already knew what you were going to do. There's no polls showing what parents really want. You don't even let parents talk. Parents are censored if they don't agree with your agenda. I don't understand how you can admit that you don't know and you'd rather not wear a mask and all of that, but yet you've used your position of power when you do not even have to do it, when you can make it optional, to take one extreme position and say that you want diapers on the faces of all of these children in order to receive what? Funding, grants, appease the unions or your friends at your backyard barbecues? You opted to affect my children's mental health and well-being, because there's far greater children that should not live in fear and should be able to go to school like normal kids. And the ones that have pre-existing conditions, they should be the ones, if their parents want them to go virtual or go in a room that the mass children go in, because you might call that divisive, but you're dividing this entire township. And you give an option of going virtual when in fact the reality is, if you want our tax dollars, we can't just do your virtual school. We have to pull completely out of the district to go to private school.
Mrs. Watson, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I just want to allow for others to speak also. Thank you. Joy Bank. can unmute. Joy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, hi, Joy Bank. I'm at 10 Oak Road in the panhandle of the township. And first I wanted to thank you all for everything that you're doing. But I had two questions that I just wanted clarification on. The contact tracing, that is not happening at all anymore?
No, Dr. Yannicone, that is not the case, but Dr. Yannicone will clarify that.
No, Mrs. Bank, we'll continue to follow the exclusion guidelines that the Office of Public Health released last week. They are available through the link on the COVID-19 resources page on the website. So we'll continue to do contact tracing. What's different is that children who are masked and we have made the effort in our schools to maintain 3 feet will not have to stay home, provided they are asymptomatic. So whereas last year, children were asked to stay home 7 to 10 days, that will no longer be the case if they've been masked and we maintain the 3 feet.
Okay, so then following up to that, if there is a positive case in the classroom, since they are 3 feet away, the children will not need to quarantine. Is that correct?
That's correct. If there's a positive case, that child will certainly quarantine, but other children who were at least 3 feet away and were masked will not have to quarantine.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that.
Certainly.
I guess, Ms. Banks, you're still on the attendee list, and I just wanted to give you one last opportunity to speak. I see your hand raised. Can we see if we can promote Ms. Banks?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and thank you so much for all that you do. I know that it's not easy to make these decisions. So prior to the meeting tonight, I took Angelina Banks. I live in Winmore. I have 2 small children, not yet in this school district, but I had 2 older stepchildren who have gone through Springfield Township School District. My stepdaughter just graduated this past June. So tonight, before the meeting, I took my 2 younger children out for a walk back by the park. 7 Dollars is behind my house. And there were fields of children happily playing soccer. Soccer practice was going on. And interestingly enough, there were some kids that were masked and there were some kids who weren't. And I took it as personal decision. On my walk back to my house, I passed people who were wearing masks and I passed people who weren't. And we've all been living in this space and we all have the data available and we all have our personal experiences, all which lead to the decisions that we decide to make. So I was personally distressed when I received the information that we decided to go back to masks, because I personally know so many children in my neighborhood who were so happy to get back to school. And today, speaking with one of my neighbors, he was really disappointed. He was so happy to see his friends' faces. He had seen their faces all summer long, as recent as tonight. So with my technical difficulties, I decided to look at the neighboring school districts and see what they were doing. Colonial is having optional masking. Central Bucks is having optional masking. Souderton is having optional masking. Cheltenham and Abington have not posted their masking policies or their safety plan yet. And like you've said before, this is all very fluid and things can get adjusted. But it does concern me that immediately we're going to masks, where we've been in this for 18 months, and those who follow the science know to look at data. The reason why I think the state or the CDC changed their masking guidance is because it was shown that vaccinated adults still have the same viral load of the virus in their nasal cavities as unvaccinated adults. So therefore, one would assume masking to be prudent. However, the data also shows and proves that the Delta variant is much less serious. Where it is more highly transmissible, it is less serious. And like the woman who spoke before me, it's a virus. There will always be variants. But denying our children the ability to form, to have their natural biome exposed to this type of bacteria and virus will not allow their system to completely build an immunity to it. And while I am so thankful that sports are being played this fall, I think Mr. Daly did raise a good point. What are we going to do with those neighboring districts or schools that we play against that don't require masking? And so I do respect every one of you, and I know that your job is very difficult, but I think we really have to think about this. There are proven mental health issues, delayed speech issues, other respiratory issues, asthma, etc. So I appreciate you, but I hope at the next meeting, hopefully there will be some amendments to this mask policy. I think those who choose to mask should have the option to, and those who have been mask-free and would like to continue to be mask-free have that option. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thanks, Angelina. Stephanie Harris. Yeah, okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Harris. I live in Erdenheim, Pennsylvania. I have 2 middle school and 1 elementary school child. My question in regards to choosing to come back the 5 days in, will there be a opportunity to stay home if a child is per se maybe having a cough? It could be the COVID, it could be fall allergies in the fall, it could be the common cold, a runny nose, any kind of respiratory symptoms. If a parent is trying to figure out what is going on, is there an option for those children to still participate like they did the past year by being able to see their classroom teacher teach while you're trying to figure out what's going on with the child? Obviously, if the child's very sick, you're going to call them out for the full day, but I wasn't sure if that was decided yet.
So as part of the health and safety plan that Dr. Yannicone presented, there are no direct streaming options available for students. Dr. Yannicone, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, yes. Mrs. Harris, what we found last year is that while the teachers were, they did their best to navigate it, it's a significant distraction to have some children at home and some children in the classroom. So we want them to concentrate on the children in the classroom. If we're going to do daily screening, you're going to do that screening for your child. If your child's not feeling well, they should stay home, rest, recover. And when they come back, the teacher will work to catch them up as they did pre-pandemic.
Okay, and just in like regards to allergies, like my son suffers from allergies and sometimes they get pretty bad in the fall. If I have a proven negative COVID test and he has a cough for a couple of weeks because he tends to cough with his allergies, is that going to be a problem? Or would he have to stay up for 3 weeks if he coughed for 3 weeks?
No, if your child is not COVID positive and he just has a cough, he's welcome to be in school.
Okay, I wasn't sure with, potentially, having symptoms that other people could hear that it might make people nervous and how that would work out.
Now, I understand your concern, Mrs. Harris. I think One of the things that we'll take from this comment, and you're not the first person to say it, is that we need to reiterate with our faculty when they return that patience and apathy and compassion is going to be especially important as we go into the school year. So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you.
Deb Owens. Just gonna, and then I'll get to
I'm Deb Owens. I'm a licensed professional counselor, which is in the state of Pennsylvania, licensed mental health person. I live in Winmore on Ardmore Avenue. And since a couple people brought this up about affecting children's mental health, for the last year, this has been an ongoing dialogue amongst large groups of therapists that work with parents, children, and teens. And frankly, no child's upset about wearing a mask, really. What they're upset about and stressed about is that adults are not taking proper precautions and that the virus is running rampant, and therefore they're stressed and anxious about that. So I just want to compliment this school board for taking this brave, courageous stance on this. I imagine we'll see in the next month other local school districts will do the same, just as the private schools have been doing all year. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. There are a few folks in the room, gentleman in the back with the temple shirt on. Hi. Hi, Matt. Come on up. If you want to take the microphone and just let us know where you are in the township, please.
Hi, Matt Cohen in Orland, and I appreciate the chance to be here. It's exciting. The only time I've been able to be in here is to use the pool pre-pandemic, so I think this is nice. I just have a comment, a question, a little feedback. I'm not really extreme one way or the other. I really just want my daughter to be back in school. I don't feel like masks are the primary argument in my mind and my wife's mind. We want her to be in school, be with her friends. I do have a couple concerns. The first is, I kind of think we're a year behind the curve. I feel like last year we had not the same amount of knowledge or information, but I feel like we could have done most of this last year. I chose to pull my daughter out of the school district because within about a week or two prior to school starting, we were met with a swift 9-0 vote that basically just said the young kids are going back home. And with the uncertainty and a younger child, we couldn't deal with it. There was someone in this room, I'm not going to name them, that said, don't confuse school with childcare. My wife made a profound statement to me after, because that disturbed me. And she said, it's a societal norm to have children in school from 9 to 3. We don't ask anyone for childcare. We'll get our child to and from school. Those are the only feelings I have that are really strong about what's going on. But besides that, I'm glad my daughter's gonna be back in school. She's super excited. She's made tons of friends. I heard you say, like one of the callers on the phone, fluid plan. So my concern is fluid can kind of work in multiple ways. It could be, you're back home. So I'm not naive. I know that lots of things. My thinking is, I almost wish we could shift our mindset to a year ago, realize children probably could have been in school longer. They probably could have been 5 days a week longer, and maybe just not go so far back in terms of our thinking. And those were my main thoughts. I just really wanted to give some thought-provoking comments on kind of what we're involved in. Last year around this time, I spoke via Zoom meeting, and I said, I'm willing to partner to do with whatever we need to keep children in school. If it's rides, walking our children to school, if it's commitments, it's hours, it's whatever we need. And I feel the same way this year. And my primary thought is to just keep the children in school and make it work. And I think most parents are willing to make it work, evidenced by the 97%. So I thank you for being here and allowing me to speak.
Thanks. I know the board members don't usually make a comment, but Walter broke precedent, so I felt like I needed to make a comment. No, as people are speaking, I wanted to address your thought about, let's get ahead of the curve at this point in time. And I feel like the current health and safety plan with mask mandates allows us to get ahead of the curve and bring students in full-time in person, which is, as we all know, the loss of in-person instruction time last year, connection with peers, connection with teachers, was of the greatest detriment to students, not masks. And so that is part of the reason for my voting in favor of the mask, of the health and safety plan that was presented by the administration. So I just wanted to address your comment. Lady in the green mask. Everybody has to look around. What color your mask do I have on today?
Hi, I'm Marcy Landsman. I'm from Flowertown or Erdenheim. I just have a comment I wanted to make. I wrote it down so I don't get distracted. A question and a comment. Are parents going to be notified? You said that they're not going to have to quarantine. So basically, if my child's 3.5 feet from a child, I'm not going to know that they were in contact with a child who's infected. Is that correct?
Well, we're going to follow the exclusion guidelines as OPH provides them. So last year, no, and this year, based on what we know right now,
right,
you would not be contacted. No.
And the other thing I wanted to just say, I have a she's in first grade. She'll be in first grade. I've had no experience with the school. I didn't meet the teacher. This is not your fault. But I also had no experience with the school district meeting. I did several online last August. I asked you guys to post the agenda like twice. The agenda is never easy to find. I see you have a new system. It's really hard to read on the phone. I know we had to say who was coming tonight. There probably should have been enough agendas for every person in attendance. These things, it is a criticism, I guess, but for me, I don't know how things work. And I think the incoming kindergarten parents don't know. So it just like, I think it welcomes you, like even the notice to tell us to get here, there was no link to the agenda. So you had to it's like a maze to figure out what's going on, basically. And I'm getting there. It's been 1 year. So I guess if I could just, if you have a person who could look into that and have it posted, obviously this is a very specific situation with the safety plan, but in general, like a week before, I'd like to see that agenda to know what you're voting on, to understand how everything works. So that's just a comment, but I'm very happy with everything. I just think sometimes we forget how difficult it is. I didn't know where to park tonight. So I'm in the front of the building, and then just, that kind of stuff really creates a welcoming environment for the parents. That's my only comment.
That's all good information, and thank you for sharing that with us. This is the first meeting that we are using board docs for, and in the future, the agendas will be posted a little bit early, but by law, we are required to post the agenda 24 hours in advance, and in order to have a full agenda. Do you want to talk a little bit about our procedure?
Sure. So we're adjusting to this new system. Typically, we've posted the agenda late the week prior because that's when we finish it, since there's a meeting every other week. We'll do our best. Just know that there might be amendments to the agenda over the weekend because, for example, sometimes we hire somebody, so we amend the personnel agenda late. But we do know that we have an obligation to make sure that the final agenda is ready to go 24 hours in advance. We'll make sure we meet that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the feedback on the website. We are certainly talking as an administrative team about how to make the website more accessible for families. With regard to getting to know the community and the schools, our principals have also been thinking about how to manage things like back to school night and visitations and introductions for families. And so we take your comment to heart, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that families feel welcome in our schools.
I would love to see the school. I mean, it's a block from my house. That would be great before my kid's out of it. So I came in kindergarten. I don't know if that's possible. I understand that you guys have a lot, and obviously it's not the top of your concerns. I don't expect it to be. And if it falls by the wayside because you have all this other stuff, that's fine. But I was really excited for that school because I didn't even know where it was going. I just happened to live a block away from it. So, but again, that again, it's a long meeting, but I just wanted to share that. Even if you just have one person to sort of think about how somebody like me, if it's a new kindergarten mom, maybe, how do you see this? Because I don't find you accessible. I don't know how I would feel if it wasn't a pandemic. But I think, I mean that in a constructive way, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go online and then I'll grab someone else from the audience. Jim Etlin.
Good evening.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I want to thank the school district for recognizing the science and the seriousness of this pandemic and having students return to school 5 days a week with masks. What's certain is wearing masks prevents the spread of COVID, and we understand that not wearing masks and not being vaccinated is something that contributes to the spread and the transmission of COVID-19. I want to thank the district for making a decision that will ensure the safety of all of our children. And I appreciate and fully support your decision for the return with masks. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Lady in the back with her hand up, yellow mask, right? Yeah. Sorry.
Hi there. My name is Ashley. I live in Winmore. I just have a follow-up.
Ashley, can you share your last name? I'm sorry.
Newberry, sorry.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up comment question about one of the women that spoke a few minutes ago. If children have symptoms of being ill and or they get COVID, what happens to the children if they're out for 2 weeks? Are they coming to, like the parents are picking up the assignment from school, or, you know, I'm just not quite sure if my child gets sick. I mean, my goal is to keep them home. However, if there's nothing set up, I would imagine that many people might, you know, oh, they just have a mild temperature. We'll just send them on their way because, you know, I don't want them to miss school. So is there anything set up? It would be nice if there was something virtual. Clearly, I understand there isn't. But if my child happens to contract COVID and is out for 2-3 weeks, what is in place for them and to continue their learning?
Thank you. I appreciate that. The principals are all working on those plans, and that'll be part of what they share with families on the 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Jenny? Okay. Jenny, French.
I'm Jenny French. I'm at 604 Grace Lane in the corner of Flowertown. I just want to say I'm so impressed by the decisions that have been made tonight to mask. And it's all in the interest of public health, which is why this country is where it is. We got rid of polio, we got rid of measles, we got rid of all these things because people went along with the program. They believed in the science. They knew that America had great scientists. They believed in it. They followed the program. They got rid of the diseases, pretty much. And that's just, you know, you had a seamless vote because it was clear how it had to go. I mean, there's a little piece of cloth, and luckily that's all we have to do. We don't have to wear armor. We don't have to hide from each other too much anymore if we get vaccinated. Just a little piece of cloth we have to wear. Someone said the kids don't mind. I'm sure they don't, because they can see. They don't want to get sick. They can deal with a mask. And I'm just, you know, you can look for ways to find a crack in the system. It's not perfect. The science keeps moving on. But we have to go with what we know, and we have to go with the science, and that's what we got to do. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I think you spoke, so I'm going to allow this gentleman here, and then I'll call on you. Sorry.
My name is Roy Hanshaw Jr. I live in Flowertown. Dr. Yannicone, members of the board. I just had a question. It's been a long time since I've been to a board meeting. All the business items that you dealt with here, the personnel and all that, is there, I see PDFs listed. Are these in much more explanation, deeper explanation on the PDFs? For instance, personnel. I don't know who you approved, at what amount, for what positions, and all these kinds of things. I think those are important things to know. All of these, are they available in the PDFs?
They are available on the board docs.
On the
Through the website, and the PDFs are all attached and available, as long as the information is not confidential, which would be legal, but there is, the personnel agenda is on there, correct? Yes, click on it. Yeah, you can click on it and you should be able to
Okay.
open it up to see that.
Well, I mean, personnel decisions are, but
Yes. Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
public, that's public information.
It is.
Okay, all right,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay, sure.
Lindsay Wood from Flowertown again. Actually, I was just thinking about the mom who was talking about her son with the expressive language disorder. And I just wanted to mention that at the university with our SLP program, our language programs, and our deaf and hard of hearing students, we use these masks that have like foam on the outside and a clear panel. And all of our students and faculty use those. And it's really helpful for the expressive language thing. So I just wanted to mention that as an option for those programs as an accommodation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. I'll just let you and the parents know, they've been ordered. So we did use some of those last year. We've ordered a larger amount this year to be able to accommodate our students with language difficulties, including our English learners, quite frankly.
Abby Dant. Abby, you're muted. You can unmute. Okay, I'm going to go to Michael Searman.
My name is Michael Searman. I'm from Winmore. And I have three quick questions here. First, in regards to the standardized testing. Last year, my daughter had algebra and was exempted from the Keystone Algebra exam. She doesn't graduate until 2025. Does that exemption run through, or will she have to take that exam before she graduates?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question, Mr. Searman, we would hope that your daughter would be ready for the exam after Algebra 2, which I guess it sounds like she would be taking in 22, 23. We don't yet know how the state is going to handle students who took Keystone courses during the pandemic. We're still waiting for guidance from them on that matter. But there are times when students, for lots of reasons, don't take the exam after Algebra 1. And so we have them take it after Algebra 2. Dr. Johnson, is there anything else you might add to that?
There are multiple pathways towards that graduation requirement. So the state has articulated ways in which you can meet the compliance and the success of the coursework. Keystone testing is one way, but it's not the only way.
Could you repeat the first part of that? Because I don't think your
sure.
microphone was on while that
Thank
was
you.
while you were answering.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has determined through the Department of Education that there are multiple pathways on how you can meet graduation requirements, one of which is the Keystone test. But there are other avenues, and Mr. Searman, I'm happy to share that with you. If you want to send me an email, I'll send you the link to that information.
Okay, thank you. My next question is in regards to your comment earlier when you said that if there is a case, a positive case in a classroom, the students do not have to quarantine if they're masked and maintain the 3-foot distancing in the classroom. How is that measured, for example, in the hallways or during recess? How is that being maintained? Or at least, do you know who's within 3 feet, who's not?
Right, so in the hallways, at the secondary level, we try to have supervision in the hallways to remind students to maintain distance. They're teenagers, that's a little challenging, but we work at it. At the elementary level, the children, if you were in the hallways, you would see them walking. You may not be able to see me, but the teachers have them walking with hands out in front of them and behind them in order to let them know, like, let's keep our 3 feet. Out at recess, there are no restrictions because that the guidance doesn't suggest that they need to maintain 3 feet outdoors.
Okay. And my third point, I would like to just mention that in also researching various policies in nearby districts, I've noticed that Wissahickon took an approach that is not a one size fit all, and they have different approaches depending upon the age of the students and the buildings that they are in. And I would just suggest that the board take a look at the Wissahickon School District policies to see if any of those would be a better fit than what you've come up with, and maybe, a way to fine tune ours to better fit the needs of our community. And that's all I have. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a wonderful job.
Thanks, Mr. Seaman. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to speak? I don't see anyone else online at this point. Okay, all right. Future meeting dates. There will be board committee meetings. Policy committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 5 p.m. It will be a Zoom meeting. That is tentative at this time. The finance committee meeting will be held Thursday, August 12th, 2021 at 8 a.m. And that's also a Zoom meeting. That's tentative. And a property committee meeting is set for Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 8 a.m. That is a Zoom meeting also. Thank everyone.
Sorry, just a quick question. Did the date of the property committee meeting change?
Did I read it right? Property committee Wednesday, August 25th, 2020.
Did it change to the 24th?
I think you're thinking of, yes, I had to move the property committee meeting because new teacher induction is that Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. I do want to thank everyone for their comments at the board meeting tonight. I feel that hearing from everyone in the community is important. And I give everyone, encourage everyone to have the opportunity to speak at board meetings. We will do our very best to make sure that all of the information is available to you on the website through our board docs website. And the board and the administration are also accessible via email. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're adjourned.